Good morning, everybody. Really excited to be with you. I'm going to play our quick intro clip, and then I'm going to kick it right over to Andrea for a really exciting episode of the Patient Advocacy Show.
Wow. I was like going, are we watching WWF?
What is the smackdown between digital versus paper?
I know. I just kept waiting, or to keep with the Super Bowl, the helmets came across paper versus digital. Super cool. I feel so professional now.
Right. I know. We're taking it up a notch. Let's do it.
Well, good morning, everyone. Feeling a little punchy, as you can tell. It's our weekly Wednesday patient advocacy session. I'm Dr. Andrea, a pharmacist with 30 years experience that's now expanded into patient advocacy. I'm the founder and CEO of Wayfinder Advantage, and I am the channel host of the patient advocacy channel over here at RPH Ally. With me, I have my fantastic co-pilot, co-host, Kevin, pharmacist extraordinaire. He represents the West Coast. He's also the co-founder of RPH Ally. He represents the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. And so we were talking a little before the show started how I feel like I'm walking poster child right now for, what happens when you ignore two of the pillars in the 6 of lifestyle medicine. Last night was like 5 hours of sleep. I got wrapped up in work. And so, I'm coming a little hot today. Hot mess today.
I love it. This is real life.
It is. And we could use so many episodes off of what just happened in the last 48 hours. Today we are focusing on the question that I get oftentimes of which is better. Last week we talked about documents. Do you have them, right? And could you access them? And so the documents we talked about were things like power of attorney, your will. Do people know how you want to be buried? I have a family member who swears he wants the Viking funeral. But, to be more specific, do you have particular religious practices you want honored? And so those documents need to be drafted. But then the second side of that is, can you get to them in an emergency? Or keep them, period, even if it's not an emergency. And so this question comes up, digital versus paper. Kevin, what did you think about last week's show? I know you said that it had you had a couple of aha moments, anything that came up just in the documents and then leading into this?
Andrea, I think the thing that you did a great job of in the last episode was really kind of highlighting where is everything? Like, are you ready? Do you have any idea on the level of preparedness that you have to have and some of the things you have to consider? And the other aha component was how easy it is to think I'm just going to take care of it when it happens, and then how difficult that actually is, and how nice it is to be able to find a patient advocate to in healthcare, from the healthcare providers' perspectives or those that are patient advocates, how important it is to be able to connect with your patients prior to that emergency situation so you can all be prepared and really be successful. So to me, that was a big, I hadn't thought of it before moment, in the patient advocacy journey. And I thought that was a great point.
Right. I think the documentation, there's the bare minimums that we need, if you're alive to function legally in a crisis, because somebody's going to want money and somebody's going to want permission. So we start at that level, and then we can drill down, and it can get kind of specific. I've been on, dive trips with people that are, that have these really heavy medical issues, and they're like, if I had an event, heart attack underwater, let me die, because I don't want to be brought back, right? Well, how does everybody else on the boat know that? And so, these conversations need to be held. They can be incredibly broad and they can be incredibly targeted. And so, yes, working with an advocate who can walk through that, I think it's critical for peace of mind, not only for yourself so that you get what you want, but then your family isn't scrambling. And that leads us to the second piece. And where I really noticed digital versus paper, we've talked, I'm an avid traveler. I've lived overseas. I've traveled extensively solo. I even have single-handed a boat, small boat in Long Island Sound by myself. This year I'll be doing it down here in North Carolina on a bigger boat. And so, if something happens, when I think of me being a single traveler, right? I have information on my cell phone that's all password encrypted, right? So I have that on me, but who could reach it? If I had something that was very specific. And so when I talk about documents, I've often looked at it from the traveler perspective. And now within advocacy, getting into this, what are our wishes, and being able to communicate that. The way I look at it is there's a place for both paper and digital. And it depends on what the needs are, right? And so each circumstance could be very individualized, and the need for paper and digital backup is also relevant. And you may actually have both.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How do you, so with that, Andrea, like having both, I mean, I know there's pros and cons, we'll talk about some of those to both, right? But in terms of having both, any documents that you think of like right off the bat, like Kevin, you need to have both of these. Like this is something you need to have in both copy forms, and it will serve you well.
Right. The way that I look at this is that, and instead of focusing on the digital versus paper, I like to say anything that immediately needs to be communicated if you were to drop. There's no better way to put it, right? You're walking down the street, you clutch your chest, and you're down. What would people need to know immediately, right?
Yes.
And in those cases, that's where paper shines, or manual, right? If you carry something in your wallet, whether it be a piece of jewelry, whether it be something that says, I have an allergy. This is this is somebody that I should be communicated with, right? So I would think any illness that could require very specific treatment or an emergency medical need that needs to be met, allergies, and somebody in a point of contact. Those are at least the three most basic pieces of it. And then if you have, let's say, certain religious practices, an individual may not want certain types of products, right? That could be something that you could add. It could be somebody with like a portable medical order that wants honored, right? So that could be something. So when I think of what does the average person, should they have on, I hate to say should, but the most relevant is anything with an allergy, anything that's a medical crisis, and that you feel immediately needs to be communicated if you couldn't do it.
Got it. So me, like as soon as I go into healthcare brain, I'm thinking, okay, I've got a patient that requires an EpiPen. I've got a diabetic patient that could have a hypoglycemia issue that would pop up. I've got a patient that has seizures. All of those things are like, okay, these individuals, someone would need to know immediately what is going on with this individual and how do I help? And having something on their person that you can look at immediately would be helpful.
Right. And I would also add that there could be some behavioral or mental health challenges as well that might be beneficial to communicate on that. Somebody that is, that has autism or that's on the spectrum, it may be a situation where it is, in terms of communication, it is more complicated to communicate with that individual, right? Especially in a very stressful experience. And so having something on there that says, whatever it is, fill in the blank, and I communicate best this way, or this person needs to be contacted, if this happens. And so I definitely look at the immediate, the crisis information. If you have it on paper, because let's face it, if you are walking down the street and you drop, most people would dial 911, and we talk about who really rushes to the aid, right? But they're going to look for wallets, you're going to look for purses, maybe a backpack or something. They're going to do that. Now, if they look at your phone, it's possible that you could have that set up to have something on the screen, but if it has to go through the password, that at that moment, is a challenge. Now, to bridge that gap, what you can also have is a way to contact your digital storage vault, for lack of a better word, that says in an emergency, healthcare providers, different tools allow people to access this information. And so then you can get to that next level of information.
I love that. I remember you telling me about a tool that has those kind of capabilities, which I love kind of looking into, the tool that like my family uses is Tamvu. So that's why we partnered with them. But
Mhm.
some of the benefits of the tool that you mentioned, I've really loved, and I've brought up to that Tamboo's team to say, I think this makes a tons of sense to incorporate it. It is the ability, so that I get this right for the audience so they know. If Kevin was by himself and all of a
Mhm.
sudden he passes out, there is a card that is available. And what is it, the name of the company again, Andrea? If
So I should have given you the heads up on this though. I
regardless of the
particularly am not, from my side of it, I did not want to mention specific companies. I'll certainly talk about what it does. And the reason being is video, once it's out there, it's out there. And then this stuff changes. And
sure,
so whether it be for, encryption or security, or the company may not be here. I just wanted to keep it like
the functionality,
basic.
Andrea, is I fall down, I'm out. The,
Right.
some companies, some companies at this time have the ability for me to have a card that now my
Yes.
healthcare team can use to access all of my records that I have in storage.
Exactly, exactly. So there are document storage companies out there, and depending on the interface, this one that we were talking about, they do have like a paper card and a code. And so the healthcare provider, you're in the emergency department, they can contact that, use that code, and then they can get to additional information that has been uploaded. You have to choose what you're going to put on that site, but at
Yeah,
least that way, you're able to have, particularly, let's say you've had an organ transplant or something.
right.
There's information that could be conveyed much more seamlessly because we don't have the universal access or record keeping in the country. And
Yeah,
so looking at it from that perspective, that would be the easiest way to communicate your information. There was another feature, and this is something just to throw out. I mentioned autism or on the spectrum. That particular company has the ability to set up levels to where, let's say you have somebody that lives autonomously, they live independently, and
yeah,
yet that they would benefit from having someone with them if there was a higher level of acuity. You can set it, the security, so that it actually gives the person that is your trusted contact a heads up that the card's been used. And then that way it's like, is it something that's more routine, a normal doctor visit, or is something really going on? And
what
so
you
I
know.
really, I like that alert feature.
Oh, me too. I mean, and Andrea, I was just thinking about our colleague, Ashley, when it comes to the unique ability community and how
Mhm.
deaf individuals are able to take care of some of those things and have those kind of notified initially. But having a family member with even a hearing disability like my mom,
Mhm.
when she goes in and she's in a doctor's appointment or other setting, if something's wrong with her hearing aids or something else is along there, she's not going to feel confident or able to take care of what she needs. And so I think that's a great point out.
Right. Yeah. I think we have amazing tools that are or tools and resources available. And so, I mean, I'm a believer in all of them. And that's why, in terms of paper, think of the most immediate, most critical that needs to be done ASAP,
Yeah.
that is a no brainer. And then the digital is the backup. And I've shared the story with you before, what happened with my sister and I sitting on the beach. We get a phone call. My dad's in the emergency department. There are documents that you're going to get that if at some point in your life, power of attorneys, wills, there is a certified original with the seal that you're going to have somewhere locked up, right? And then they're
Yeah.
going to give you copies that also have the seals on it, and you're going to have those paper copies available, and those are going to be locked up. And yet you get into this situation where we're sitting on the beach. Obviously, I'm not carrying around the power of attorney in my swimsuit, and and on a weekend, how do you if everybody that has the key to the safety deposit box is on the beach or in the emergency department, who goes and gets that, right? And so being able to upload that digital copy and send it, the care center may very well still want an original copy to prove or to make their own copy, but at least they'll have something that gives you access, because we were in a position where we went from having open communication with the hospital because dad's in the traditional emergency department, and the minute they sent him, without telling us, against kind of his will and ours, into a mental facility, because he was hallucinating because of hypoxia and sleep apnea and everything, immediately it was like the firewall fell, and they didn't even know who he was. Sorry, don't have anybody by that name, because it was now behavioral. And it was like, wait a second, he was just there. You called in the middle of the night. So don't tell me he doesn't exist. And it was only because I knew our town there was only 2 hospitals he could have gone to, and only one had a geriatric psych ward.
Oh,
And so I was like, look, if you're sending him somewhere, odds are he's there. And someone, did one of those, well, I can't confirm, however. And so thank goodness we were able to find the attorney, get the paperwork faxed. And then, of course they spoke to us, but yeah. And so in those circumstances, digital certainly backs you up, as well as if you're traveling internationally. Oh my gosh, digital is a fantastic option. You can put passport copy, things like that in there. And as I've worked, I've talked to some people, you travel extensively, let's say you're undergoing cancer treatments, you take opioids, but you're going to be on like one of these around the world cruises, right? Yeah. Different countries have different rules on medications that you can bring into a country or not. Some countries want you to have medical records to show that you need to be on that medication, or they want proof that prescription was written, by a physician. You may need letters that support the use of these drugs. You may have to see a physician in that country who has to look at your medical records. I mean, they can make you jump through all kinds of hoops depending on what's going on. And so the digital versions make that easier.
No, I'm all for patient autonomy, Andrea, and I know you are too. And I really feel like that strengthens and empowers a patient, having that digital record on their person. Especially that we all carry our phones, anymore. It's just so nice to have everything in one place so that you have it. I love the backups or having the original copies, available, but having that digital version on your phone, I feel like if we get anything out to the audience that is a patient audience listening, like getting something that can give you a digital version of your records, imperative.
Yeah, I agree. So that was today's follow-up to last week. Last week, if you didn't see the episode, go back. Documents that you need. I also have tools, checklists, worksheets that can work you through like how to plan. Believe me, it's not like most of us sit down on the weekend and go, ooh, I have, 12 hours. Let's do life planning. Even making the document, I felt myself just getting heavier and heavier going, I got to get up and walk away. The section alone on what to do when you pass away with your social media. Oh my gosh. But we forget, and so if you have questions on that, I don't know about you, Kevin, but I have a secure document squirreled away from my husband that basically says, if I die, read this because of my business. There's stuff tied to my business that's auto.
Yep.
He has no clue.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what we have. And I think that it becomes even more difficult, like maybe spouses are communicating more and know some of these things, but then after mom and dad pass away and it goes to kids or goes to a dependent, I know we're going long. You and I could talk a long time on this subject, so I will cut myself short. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Next week, I can't remember what we're talking about. Oh, advocacy specialties, I think. So and we might have 2 episodes. One's the speaker series. I have a fantastic guest coming up. So you'll see some advertising for that or media for that. But yep, next week we're talking about the different specialties and how to kind of look for an advocate that fits your needs.
All right.
So Kevin, I'll let you take us out because you got the power of the button, I think, today.
Power of the button. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Andrea. That was a wonderful episode. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. To join and to get more, follow RPH Ally on social media, and you'll be able to see when these shows are popping up each week to be able to follow Andrea. And then go into rphally.com and then join the patient advocacy channel and get even more from Andrea. So you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.